Welcome to the 1 in 50 podcast from the Brain Aneurysm Foundation. I'm your host, Christine Buckley. 1 in 50 is the number of people living with an unruptured aneurysm, which is equal to 6.8 million people in the United States. A rupture occurs every 18 minutes, and tragically, half the people who rupture will die. These statistics need to change. The Foundation's goal is big but critical: to create a world free of death and disability from brain aneurysms. Let's reach those unaware of the danger, because awareness can save lives and prevent tragedy. Knowing the signs and symptoms of brain aneurysms can be the difference between life and... Welcome to the 1 in 50 podcast. We're actually thrilled to have with us today Jeff Miles, who lives in New Delhi, India. He's a brain aneurysm stroke survivor. So Jeff, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, Christine. I'm honored to be here and privileged to be speaking with you.
No, it's our pleasure. I think you know all too well to share the information about the 1 in 50, the number in people impacted by a brain aneurysm is just critical, and any way we can do that is just really important. So thank you for being willing to share your story. And you have a super interesting background, unlike some other guests. You don't live in the US now. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and where you work?
Sure. Yeah. No, out of college, I started on Capitol Hill, was drawn to Washington in public service. I joined our State Department in 2006. My first posting was in Mexico City. I was at our embassy there. Next post was the U.S. Embassy in Manila. That's where I had my hemorrhage. I had my bleed there. August 10th, 2009. I remember everything about that: the headache, the burning pain, the asking for help. I remember it all vividly. I was taken to the hospital, and my parents and sisters flew halfway around the world to come and say goodbye to me. I had to learn to walk and feed myself again. And they did a cerebral angiogram because they weren't sure what caused the major bleed, and that probably caused an ischemic and then a hemorrhagic bleed into itself 48 hours later. It's technically idiopathic, but my doctors at Johns Hopkins are quite certain that's what did it. I went back to Hopkins. I was able to medevac out after about a month. I was finally strong enough for them to fly me back to the U.S. I was at Johns Hopkins for many, many months. And then about 6 months after leaving the Philippines in a wheelchair, I walked back into Manila, and I was able to finish my assignment there. I then went to our embassy in Buenos Aires, Argentina. I then did a tour in Washington, served at our embassy in Bogota, Colombia, did a tour in Washington where I met my wife. My wife and I had our first kid at 45. We're the same age. We had our second child at 47. And then we were all posted together at our embassy in Tegucigalpa, Honduras. And the three of us are now at our embassy in New Delhi, India.
Wow, that's amazing. Quite a story. So what was it like the day that the aneurysm occurred? You did mention that you had headaches. Did you just have a headache that day, or did you have signs and symptoms leading up to it?
So for me, and it's interesting because through your foundation, I was able to meet other survivors, but I also met the daughter of someone who didn't survive. And after it happened to me, I was so focused on recovery, and I had such survivor's guilt that you and I have talked about, that it was very hard for me to other stroke survivors. And so I haven't spoken much about that day. I've thought about it a lot, and this is even the first time I've actually spoken about it since it happened.
Wow.
So I woke up not feeling well that morning. It was August 10th, 2009. And I went into the embassy, and my head didn't feel well. I didn't feel well, but I was 33 years old, and I was like, you're 33, you're in the Philippines, you're fine. And I was with one of my fellow junior officers. We were in speaking with the chief of the unit, and I got the worst headache I've ever had in my entire life. And it's just interesting because after that, you go into a doctor's office and they're like, scale of 1 to 10. Everything now is a 1 because I'm like,
Yeah,
listen,
yeah, yeah.
I know what a 10 is. And and I mean everything. I got incredibly hot. I began to sweat. I felt like I was going to vomit. Um, I asked to be taken back to my desk. I went back to my desk and sat down, and I said, I need help. I need to go to the med unit.
Wow.
Luckily, embassy where there's a U.S. MD, there's U.S. board certified doctor on the compound.
Well, that's great.
Thank God for that.
Yeah.
And my good friend Doreen Bailey, who I subsequently later served with again in Bogota, Colombia, and Neil Gibson, they walked me arm in arm to the med unit. The doctor there knew I had a stroke, knew I had a bleeding in my brain, and said we have to take you to the hospital right away. So that's the morning. And
so you had the classic signs and symptoms of that rupture, that and the worst headache of your life, which is just so important to get help as soon as possible.
Absolutely. Hindsight is 2020, but awareness for everyone else is powerfully crucial.
Yeah. So had you heard the term brain aneurysm before you found out like that's what happened to you?
No. I mean, I was 33. I was healthy. I prided myself. I'd never taken a sick day in my life. At that point. I was about to have about 6 months of them, but man, I was so proud of that. So that's why I was like, this headache's nothing. It'll pass.
Yeah. I mean, and that is what's really hard with misdiagnosis. It's right. I shouldn't even just say misdiagnosis, for the reason why people don't seek medical attention. And then sometimes why misdiagnosis follows, because, headaches, so many people have them on a regular basis and just don't, because they don't know, due to the lack of awareness, they don't realize like you were actually having a really bad headache and finally did ask someone, to get you help. But a lot of people, just because they're so unaware of what a brain aneurysm is or haven't met anyone that has had one, it's something that does make it difficult to diagnose and treat as easily as possible. So it is certainly a very tricky part with this disease. There's a lot to it. As you probably have learned, it's people don't know why they form or when they form, and if you have it, will it rupture? So that's why, again, the awareness and education is critical, to know some of those signs and symptoms, to know when to advocate best for yourself as a patient, particularly when it's neck up and something's going on in your head. So,
no, I mean, absolutely, Kristen, you're absolutely right. I said afterwards, luckily I was at the embassy where I could say, get me help. If I was at home that evening, I 100% would have just gone to bed and been like, oh, I'm not feeling so well. I'm going to lay.
Yeah, that's scary.
It
could have been a very different outcome if that was the case. But anyway, you're here. Thank God for that, right? So, but tell us a little bit about the toughest part in your recovery journey, like physically and emotionally. And you had a lot of recovery because of the subsequent strokes.
Yeah, no, I mean, the toughest was the physical therapy, the learning to walk again and the learning to feed myself again. I mean, the fact that I can do this, I still never take for granted. It's interesting. I'm going to share a little bit, but I don't usually share because I think it's important. When I'm doing the physical therapy, I got clearance from my doctor eventually, from my neurologist to exercise, and I overdid it, and my pituitary gland shut down, and that's the only I'm now on for the rest of my life. I'm not on anything else, and I wanted to come back. I wanted to be better so bad that that I exercised too hard. I committed too much, which is kind of doesn't make sense almost, you know. And
Right.
so anyone I've spoken with other stroke survivors. That's kind of the one unique thing. When you're posted to Washington, the State Department, you find other people who've been medevaced back to Washington for other medical reasons. And I encountered two other recent stroke survivors. And I told them, and they were both in a much different place than me, which made my guilt. I left both those meetings in absolute tears.
Yeah.
Just question why me, is just physical therapy is crucial, right? But ask what you should do what you should do, ask your doctor what you can do, and stay within that, because everybody wants to come back. Everybody wants to be back where they. It's a long process. For me, it was definitely 2 years. It was a full 2 years, and my life, as I just mentioned to you, it's kind of clear chapters, and I know exactly where I was. But at a post, that chapter is very clear in my life. The
Right.
beginning and the end. It's documented. Usually, if you don't have that, you kind of look back and you're like, "Oh, that was a chapter of my life." And so it was. I remember. I know where I was in Buenos Aires. I'd been there about a year, but I started to be like, "Okay, I think I'm now fully coming back." It took a long time. The brain needs a long time to rest and recover and repair itself after something like that.
Yeah. And how was your family, again, being overseas and everything? How did they take it? And were they surprised? And how were they dealing with your recovery and finding out what had happened to you?
So the doctors, so the one thing I came to appreciate from this is a U.S. board certified doctor, to be very honest, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that is on par. I mean, it is arguably the best trained medical professional in the entire world. And so keep in mind, I had 2 strokes almost certainly from a medical procedure by a not U.S. board certified doctor. But at the time, I was told by the doctors in the Philippines. Well, I wasn't told. I was.
Right. Your
They
friends.
told, yes, that I have a less than 10% chance of surviving the night. So imagine that my parents and my sisters just quickly found tickets. I mean, the Philippines is arguably halfway around the world. It's a 12-hour time difference. They
Right.
worked together, expecting to say goodbye to me. And so that was obviously very, very, very difficult for them. My mother spent a lot of time in the chapel
I'm
in the Philippines.
sure.
When I had the cerebral angiogram, they were ecstatic when I came out, because that's obviously a scary thing,
Right.
and then we found out later that caused further issues, if you will. But no, I mean, my family rallied very, very, very quickly, but it was scary. And then I wanted to know from my sisters. I
Yeah.
remember how my neurologist, what should my sisters do? What do my sisters need to do? Um, Vividly. That was about 3 or 4 months after, when I was still back in the U.S. recovering. I remember having those conversations.
Wow. Yeah, that's unbelievable. I can't imagine your poor family making that journey and being told what they were told. I mean, that's one of the things oftentimes, to be the patient and to be the survivor. Hopefully there were times when you weren't sure what was going on, but for those who love you and care for you, it's awfully hard to be waiting on that other side. So again, I'm sorry for them, but glad that they have you the way that you are. So you just this past spring ran the Boston Marathon for the Brain Aneurysm Foundation and raised a lot of money, but it wasn't your first marathon. So tell me, how did you get into running marathons after having to teach yourself to walk again and teach yourself to eat again? How did that idea come your way, and how have you become so amazing at
I can tell you. All right, I can tell you.
it?
There's a bridge in Baltimore, because I was at Johns Hopkins. I was walking over it with a walker. I remember vividly. I was walking over with a walker, and I was like, "I'm walking." They said I would never walk again, I said, "I wonder if I'll ever run again." And the person I was with at the time said, "Yes, you will." I don't know if that was just to tell me to give me hope. They believed it, but I was like, "I'm going to run again." And I talked earlier about how I knew I was coming back in Buenos Aires when things have recovered. And so when I knew I was coming back and was where I was going to be in a good place, I knew it. I was like, I want to run a 10K race. I want to do that. If I'm told I'd never walk again, I want to do that. Now, I can be a kind of hard and driven person.
I can tell.
That's why I pushed myself a little bit too much with the physical therapy that caused my pituitary to shut down. But I said, okay, I did a 10K. I want to do a marathon now. And then I found out about the Boston Marathon. The world's oldest marathon, the marathon that you have to qualify to get into. And I said, if they told me I would never walk again, I'm going to qualify and I'm going to run the Boston Marathon. I was determined, absolutely positively determined. And I did not win the genetic lottery. Yes, I survived the aneurysm, the hemorrhage, but
Right.
I mean, running a marathon to qualify for the Boston Marathon is not easy for me. So I trained, I ate well, I was disciplined, I slept well, I recovered well, I did everything I needed to do. And I ran my first marathon in Buenos Aires, Argentina. I went back to BA. I wasn't posted there. And I missed it by 28 seconds. 28 seconds.
Can't imagine that.
But
That's hurtful.
I was like, oh, that hurts. That really hurt. But I was like, I'm not going to be stopped. And so 6 months later, in April, I ran the Santiago de Chile in Chile. I ran the marathon there, and I got my Boston qualifier.
Wow.
And I did my first Boston, and the pandemic made it a virtual. And so I couldn't run the famous course that I'd spent. I mean, I spent 5 years building up to the marathon. I said I want to run the Boston Marathon. And I didn't run a marathon until 5 years later because I learned that I overdid it to my body after the strokes.
Right.
I call them strokes. My neurologist only sees them as one incident. I see them as three.
Right. I don't blame you.
So I worked up very slowly to run 26.2 miles. My body, I said, Jeff, your body took care of you. Your body let you come back. Take your time doing this. So I worked for 5 years. So I dreamed of that course. And the first time I ran it, I couldn't run it on the course because of the pandemic. So,
that's hurtful too. Gosh, that's a lot.
In October of 2021, because they moved the date because of the pandemic, I got to run it in person. I got to run the course. I got to make the right on Hereford and the left on Boylston. And I was hooked. I've never felt a city embrace runners in a marathon. Everyone is cheering for you. Tell me another sport where 100% of the spectators are cheering for 100% of the athletes.
It's so true. Yeah, it is. It's amazing. It is amazing.
Everyone cheering for you, and I was hooked. And then I found out the best way to do Boston. The best way to do Boston is to qualify, but then to also do it with a charity, raise money for a charity, contribute to a cause, be part of a process. And so before I'd always done it solo, and this year I got to do it with your team, for your team, raising money for your foundation. And it just made, and it was 6-1, it made the experience so much better to be part of something, to be contributing, and not just be out there for myself, but also for a cause. It was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful.
Oh, yeah. Well, that I'm glad to hear. I mean, that's, I was going to ask you if you just didn't say, what was it like being part of a team versus running for yourself? I mean, you're running for so much more, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of training. And I think it must change that perspective. And did you met members also of the team, part of the BF team that ran. So did you hear other stories that, I think you heard them probably after you ran, but that, encourage you going forward to even want to do it again for BAF and continue to be part of this team?
I would love to be part of your team in the future. I would love to raise money for the foundation, spread awareness. And I do get, and I'm choking up a little bit, for a long time, I didn't talk about what happened to me because it's luck, in all honesty, where it ruptures, where the bleed is, if your age,
Right.
But I understand how it can be helpful and how it can help spread awareness and make sure people take their headaches, take the clues seriously, and not dismiss them and go to bed like I would have done. Luckily, I asked for help,
Yeah.
and so I understand, and I appreciate that now. It took me a while to get there.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you did. What message would you give to just other survivors who are struggling in their recovery?
I mean, it's cliche, but you have to take it day by day, right? I had bad days in physical therapy. I had good days in physical therapy. I remember vividly waking up and being like, okay, I'm still alive. Right arm, right leg, left leg. Okay, they move. Okay, Jeff, try and go back to bed. You are
Yeah.
going to have days, okay? But you survived. Think
Yeah.
about the family, the friend support that came to you. They will need you one day, and you learn from your experience, right? And then you can have that
Yeah.
connection with them, need you from what you went through. But you have to take it day by day. Not every day is going to be perfect, but the sun comes up tomorrow. You
Yeah.
wake up, a new day. I can honestly tell you, Christine, every single day I wake up, I'm now going on 16 years. Every single morning I wake up, I think about what happened to me, and I say I'm thankful to be here right now. Every single morning
Yeah.
without fail. You get that
No, I
day,
don't.
and
Yeah.
you can take that and you can help others after you get through your struggle. It is a struggle, but
Yeah.
moving forward, and you look at your day, you listen to your care team,
Yeah.
and keep moving forward.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think what you said before is really true. Like your body did ultimately take care of you and got you through this. And you didn't run your first marathon a year later. It took you some time to build up to that. So I do think it is really important to have those goals, to set things that you can meet, and, not to discourage yourself by, setting the bar too high, but take things day at a time and just be grateful. But I mean, it's amazing the journey you had and what you went through. I mean, I can't imagine. I've walked over bridges, but I've never thought, well, now I'm going to run a marathon, So, I mean, it's a rare person that can really take on the challenge that you did. I mean, like you said, I cheer, and it's an amazing feeling just being a fan and looking at all the different people, particularly from the charity perspectives, and knowing what a lot of these charities are, and knowing that a lot of people running, what they've been through to run it themselves, or people that have lost somebody, in the way that people do decide to give back, is certainly very inspiring for, being part of a nonprofit, and just seeing people take a tragedy and turn it into something more than what they just went through, to give back to other people. And, that's the core of what this foundation is made up of, people who are just amazing in their ability to want to make things better for other people, and to save them either going through a loss or going through that struggling recovery, because it doesn't just impact you, it impacts your family and the community and the workforce and everything that you're a part of. So again, anything that we can do to prevent that to others going forward is so important.
I'll tell you one interesting story about the marathon this year that might be helpful. So when I was walking to the start line, I loved being with the charity runners. As I mentioned, up until now, I'd gone for my qualifying, and you go in the front of the pack, and it's a different vibe, it's a different feel, it's a different race, to be very honest. And I like being with the charity runners a lot, because they're all there for a reason. They're all there help a cause. And I was walking to the start line, and I saw a lady, and she was running in honor of her mother who died from MS. She was supporting the MS Foundation. And I noticed her, and I'm going through a cancer fight with my dad right now, and I know one day I might be in that same situation. So I just noticed that, and then you get the CVS in Hopkinton for those that have run the race and know the race, and you wait at the CVS in Hopkinton before going to your corrals, and somehow, amongst thousands of people, her and I ended up right next to each other. So, and her name was written on her arm, and I said, "Hi, Sam. I'm Jeff. You're running on your mom. That's fantastic." We just got to chatting, so we start running together. right? And I learned about Sam's mom and that she lost her late 2024. And she was running in honor, raising money for MS. Heard about her mom and that she wanted to finish this race for her. So Sam and I go out and we're just running, and I'm like, hey, let's just hang together for a bit, you know? And she teaches at a school in Massachusetts. I heard about her 2 kids and her husband.
Yeah.
And we're running, and Sam starts to have a bad day. And this is where my 6 Boston Marathon, running for your foundation, running for that cause, running with the team, got even better. So
Yeah.
Sam starts a bad day, and Sam stops, and I stop with Sam. And Sam's ready to quit.
Wow.
And I talked to her, and I'm like, listen, Sam, I'll run and walk this in with you. We'll get there together. You talked about wanting to do this for your mom.
Yeah.
Let's do it together. We can run and we can walk this in. So Sam and I ran and walked it in when she needed to walk. We took our time. I remember in Brookline, we walked. At Heartbreak, we started running Heartbreak a little. Went to take a walk, and we walked, and we got there together. And Sam and I finished, and we gave each other the biggest hug ever.
That's amazing.
And just to help someone that was going through, you know.
That's amazing. Wow. That's something.
I love running for a cause, and just staying connected with someone just made the race even more meaningful.
Yeah, I mean, she must be so happy that you were her one that got her through that. So that's really amazing and impressive, and speaks a lot to the person that you are, just always giving back and wanting to help. So thank you so much. And just before we begin to wrap things up, is there one thing that you would want people to know about this disease or to be aware of?
Just, you've got to learn the warning signs, and you can't be afraid to ask for help. Even if you're a 33-year-old like me who had never taken a sick day in their life, right? But when something telling you, when your body's telling you something, you have to listen. And a little bit of information, a little bit of awareness will save lives and save the families and the caregivers. This is it can be the hardest thing on them. It's just having a little bit of awareness and then taking the action when you need to. But you have to listen to your body.
No, 100%. Absolutely. I mean, the warning signs are out there, particularly that worst headache of your life. And it is hard, right? Particularly being that age. I mean, no one ever thinks something that bad is going to happen. And, you know, it's not to frighten people or think if you have a headache that, you know, you have a brain aneurysm. But when you had a headache like you did and you know you needed help, just be aware and to think to, you know, protect your body that's given you so much, and to seek medical advice and to rule out that brain aneurysm is the key. So I just want to say thank you again for all that you have done for raising awareness and raising funds for research. It means so much, and more importantly, for sharing your story. And just getting the word out there, because it will make a difference. Awareness has proven to save lives. You don't know who's going to see your story, have it resonate with them or a loved one, and be able to get them the attention that they need when they need it. So I just want to say thank you, Jeff, so much. Really appreciate it.
Can I just say hi to Caitlin's crew? I met Caitlin's parents.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Do a shout out to them and we'll get it in.
Just thank you to them. Seeing Caitlin's crew on Instagram, seeing Caitlin's memory. I've taken Caitlin's sticker. I took it to an English class in New Delhi, and then I took it to this foundation that a friend of mine runs that helps children supplement their income when they live in a slum, live in a very low income.
That's amazing. That's great. Caitlin's crew is amazing, and so is her family, and the fight that they're doing. And her memory's amazing. So for you to do that, I'm sure they're loving seeing her sticker in places it wouldn't have gotten to without you.
Going to the Taj Mahal once I get back to India. Okay.
All right. I'm going to keep my eye out for that one.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.